steadily it rises. Public preference for Lincoln Continental as the symbol for today's luxury motoring.
Hey, it's Jason ODB, the Lincoln Addict, and I'm going to hit you guys with another listing review for our favorite cars, the 60 Lincoln Continentals, including, obviously, the convertibles, which everyone seems to love. So you see here in front of you, 65 Lincoln Continental Convertible. We can see it's a gold color, $35,000 starting bid. There's not a buy it now. Let's jump in and talk about it. So something I want to point out, you might be able to sign up for Hagerty's site even if you're not a client or customer of theirs. I use Hagerty. I like them. And one thing that I've noticed over the years is to see the evaluation tool, which you see here, you do have to log in. So if you look here, I've already searched 65 Lincoln Continental and I've selected convertible. The prices obviously range, and I think what you're going to see when we look at this one, it's going to fall between good and fair, which you see the price, the starting price, $35,000 for this car is within that range, but you'll also see that this one's kind of already on the path to be resto modded, so we'll talk about those benefits as well. But you can see here the prices have been on the rise, as we always say. And what's important is that, you always take a look at what the market is if you're concerned about, this being kind of an investment of a classic car, so to speak. So I do want to just show you these couple of photos here. You're going to see like this car is not in perfect condition. So oftentimes I'll have people that will reach out to me and say, hey, I'm looking to get a car that maybe can be a project, father-son, father-daughter type project over the course of time. And I'm not looking to spend an arm and a leg on a high dollar build, right? So there's often going to be those folks that are in a different space and they're looking to spend maybe a little bit less to get in on a car that they really want. Before we look at all the photos, though, when we scroll down here, we see, according to this, 65,000 miles. That might be a little suspect. It's kind of low. You'll sometimes see cars in that range, but it really depends if the odometer has continued to work all those years. $500 deposit due within 5 days. That's kind of a normal thing. This person has owned it for about 2 to 2.5 years. The motor was rebuilt. We'll see that in the photos. The transmission was rebuilt. So what I would say is if you're looking to get in on a convertible and you see something like this, you can almost go into your notes on your phone or start writing this stuff down or copy and paste all this and start putting price numbers next to it because, to rebuild one of these motors and transmissions, contrary to, a lot of these guys are doing swaps and that's fine, different engine trans, but to have the original motor rebuilt, if it's done right with the right parts and have the transmission rebuilt, depending on where you live in the country, that can easily be $5 to $10,000 for both of those together. New hydraulic top system, you start to add in that basic cost plus the labor, that's a few grand. New interior, it says new front and rear suspension. New brakes, new gas tank, new window motors, just ordered and had not installed. Billet window switches, those are probably from Jeff at Devious Customs. Shout out to Jeff. Some of the China switches, they don't always work is what he says. And if you ever buy the window switches that are from the usual suspects, you do have to often cut the plug and you have to solder or butt connect those in on the driver door. And they are they're not as good as the factory ones. We'll leave it at that. They had the underneath cleaned and painted, dynamatted. Car runs great down the road, 70 miles an hour. Car will need an alignment. I have put 800 miles on the motor and trans. Okay. So when we look here, we see the gold car, as I mentioned earlier. These look like Devious Customs wheels. So again, shout out to Jeff at Devious Customs. He's a sponsor on my Lincoln Addict podcast, and he sells a lot of great parts, whether you're looking to resto mod or even to just kind of refresh, maybe window switches, things like that. He's got some solutions. Now, you'll see in the truck scene, I've been tied to the truck scene for 25 years. Something that's real popular these days, especially with C10s, is kind of the patina paint, right? So when you see this, you're obviously going to see what appears to be some rust up here. But you're going to see the good part of this is there's a lot of money already invested. We kind of went through that checklist. So you start to go, wow, like, okay, let's see, is this car one that's savable? Is it one that if you want a car that maybe is in a little bit better condition, that you can go and, bring back to a condition that you would like to have it in? You got the front 3/4 shot here. What I'm seeing is obviously all the trim is here, including the bumper, the grill, all of that stuff. So, you have basically a well put together car. Everything appears to be there. You have the rear 3/4. And what's important here is on the driver's side, you're going to see the rear quarter panel. There is some rust on the other side. But what I'm always looking at is in here to see, as I mentioned in other videos, what's this rust from? Is it from the part of the country that it was in? Did it sit outside a long time? There has to be a little bit of a story on kind of maybe why the condition of this car is what it is. You can see a little bit of damage here that could maybe either be paintless dent repair, or if you were looking to do a full restoration on this car, all of that could be easily fixed. We do see this bumper end is tweaked out a little bit, so you can see where I often talk about kind of the gapping in here. This one looks perfect. This one here you can kind of see, so more than likely at some point this kind of got caught up on something and bent up a little bit. Doesn't look like the end of the world, of course, but that's something that I do notice there. Here it does have the rear trailer hitch option feature, whatever you want to call it. You may choose to leave that. The thing to keep in mind is that it is rare. I think it's awesome. I own one for my 64 that I haven't installed because I had the bumper re-chromed first. Then I acquired the trailer hitch, and you can see here there's a couple different ones, but this one actually there's 2 holes through the bumper. So if you do remove that and you were going to get the bumper re-chromed, those holes have to be filled from, a company like Advanced Plating, for instance, who I use up in Tennessee. What we can see here, though, is like from the deck lid perspective, this, of course, we're only seeing the outside. The deck lid looks really good. I'm a big fan of cars that have this kind of patina paint, right, or a little bit of oxidation, a little bit of the originality, right? You start getting into heavy rust, and if the whole car's rusted out, okay, I might not be a fan of that. But I would caution anyone, if you're looking again to get a car, you can sometimes get a car like this if it's not totally rusted out, and have some of those repairs done. If they're driving the car on the interstate at 70 miles an hour, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's a good thing. Here is the rust that I talk about on the rear quarter panel. So if you've been around older cars, you know that, a lot of cars will tend to kind of rust in here. And again, it depends where these cars resided for most of, their time. Were they outside? Were they in the snow? Were they in the salt? Did the car not run for a long time and it just sat, next to a barn? You just never really know. But this would obviously be something, if I was to acquire this car and look to just have a kind of a clean cruiser, this is kind of the stuff that I would want to fix. Actually, on my 64, I have a little spot here on one of the sides, maybe not quite as big as this little spot here, but again, that stuff from a good metal shop could easily fix this. Now, if you had someone look at a car like this and, this was all rusted out underneath and things like that, yeah, then you start getting into a lot more money, a lot more time. But this isn't too bad from what I can tell. Again, it's got that gold paint, which I like, good contrast with the black interior. I'm a fan of the different color interiors, but on a gold car, if the interior's not gold, I'd say black is probably, the one and only color that you would want to have there. And again, I do believe these are Devious Customs wheels, I believe. So you can see a little bit better shot there. I am kind of looking around here, the gas filler, to see, is there any kind of rust in here? And it looks pretty clean from what we can see. Now, in the list, he talks about the brakes and stuff. Again, if you were to copy and paste all of that from the eBay description and really look through it, these parts start to really add up. CPP has about the best price on that I found, unless you start piecing together a kit. But if you're looking to get a bolt-on kit for brakes, Classic Performance, they that's really the most economical kit that I've seen, front and rear. I think last I checked, it was maybe 750 to 800, 900, something like that, front and rear. So, 750 times two, easily $2,000, $2 to $3,000 for the parts and labor if you're not doing this yourself. Here you see a shot of the interior. What I'm noticing is, of course, not a highly optioned car, which is fine. No tilt, no cruise control or speed control, rather, no AM FM radio, and that's all fine. That's, the way I look at it is, these cars are highly optioned, out of the gate. Now, it's hard to tell. It doesn't look like an AC car. So, they all came with heat, but, AC, I don't know that that's clear, in the description. So, here again, the good thing is this seller is showing you these photos. You see a little rust spot here and you have this piece. This is stuff that can easily be fixed. However, again, my feedback to anyone would be look and see if the car, how bad is the rust overall, right? Is it horrible underneath, or the floor pan shot? I mean, are you going to have more in metal fab to fix a car and bring it back to your liking? Or, this is a car, again, some people might freak out over these little pieces, but, you could get in a car like this, as the seller has indicated, and just start cruising it. Something here, I like the Dynamat. Big fan of sound deadening. The challenge that we have here is we have no photo to see, okay, what does it look like underneath? Now, the assumption that I would make is that if this has all been Dynamated, someone's not going to hopefully go in here and Dynamat over rust, so to speak, right? And just crumbling metal and whatnot. So let's say for a moment that the floor pans were fine and all of this was good, then okay, great. You've got a great foundation. Let's lay down the Dynamat, the sound deadening, whatever you're going to use. But we just don't know. Here, I did notice this when I went through the photos a minute ago real quick. I can't really tell if that's a piece that was welded in, towards the rocker section of a vehicle, or what that is. But that did stick out to me. You can see they've taken the time to go through and do all this stuff, and it takes time to take the seats out, the carpet out, all of that work. You can see that they pretty much, have done all that, taking all of these pieces off and whatnot. So here's the money shot for the engine. So it's painted the factory black, which is great. And you can see, as far as I could tell here, it looks great. You never really know. If I was looking to, acquire this car, I would see if they had photos of it, maybe find out who did the rebuild. Then you could Google that shop and said city and kind of go, okay, wow, yeah, they're kind of higher end. They do good work, those type of things. But as far as this goes, I mean, this is more than most cars you're going to see. And taking a motor out, cleaning it, dropping it off at the machine shop, all that time and money. And if the machine shop does it right and they acquire the parts and whatever they need, this easily gets, believe it or not, $5,000 to $10,000. It could easily be, depending on how much you do yourself and things like that. But you can see here, it looks great in the car. And we can see there's no compressor here, so that confirms it is a non-AC car. The fan setup, I've talked about this a little bit. I believe the fan is different if it's a non-AC car. It'll sometimes, I believe, have one less fan blade on it. But of course, this is standard for the non-air conditioned car. We can see here it also has the upgraded brake booster, which is great. You guys have heard me talk about the importance of it. It looks like they did maybe even shoot the engine bay kind of some black. So, there's time and money invested in that. And we can see down here, it looks like only a little bit of surface rust and stuff, which it will be typical. And this may not even be anything. But, the main thing is on these cars, that front cross member, so to speak, if you're looking at one, you want to have a screwdriver or get underneath there and make sure that nothing's kind of rotted out and rusted out there. Here you can see another photo of the engine, and even if they did respray it, all kind of looks good in here. This looks like it's been sprayed, so maybe they just went in here with black and shot everything. You can see this piece was not painted, so some detail work maybe. But from the looks of the wiper setup and the little cover for the voltage, the voltage deal, the regulator, so to speak, it looks like they just came in here and just shot everything black. Here you can see 65, of course, was the first year that had the disc brakes on the front. Contrary to what a lot of people think, I'm all about, hey, upgrade the brakes, especially if you got bigger wheels and stuff. But the brakes on 65 are pretty good. The booster's great. You obviously go to the dual master cylinder, and you can get by easily with just having the factory brakes on the front. A lot of people actually upgrade the older Lincolns to the 65 front setup. You have to acquire all the parts, of course. Now, one thing I do like about what they've done here is it looks like they've used POR 15. So POR-15. That's a product that actually stands for paint over rust, and it is a great sealant, kind of sealer, if you will. My buddy Jimmy turned me onto this stuff a long time ago, and I absolutely love the product. I bought it on Amazon before. The good is that they've done it, and they've kind of went in here, and this looks great, right? I don't see anything that's indicating that there's a lot of rust underneath, which is fantastic, okay? The challenge is, though, we don't know. Did they paint all this because it was kind of crusty? Do they maybe have photos before they started this process? Either way, someone spent some time, because you could see here the engine's out, which we know was taken out to be rebuilt. But they've taken all this time, and I've done this on a 64, and it takes time, it takes energy, it takes money to do. So again, if you're looking to get into a car, this one has a lot of this stuff already done. You can see here another photo showing all of the work, pretty clean underneath. There's the engine. Now, the interior, this is a little bit better photo maybe. They did mention newer interior, so you start taking the front and rear seats and door panels, and you take it to the shop and you get that stuff done. I mean, this can run you a good amount of money. I've seen receipts from people. You could anywhere be from $3,000 to probably $8,000 to get all this redone, depending on if it's leather and whatnot. I do see here where it looks like they've covered where the pulls right here to be able to pull the door shut. Either they haven't put them back on yet in this photo, or they've covered them up. I don't know. That might just be kind of an early photo after the interior was installed. The top looks like it was done. I believe they mentioned that, but again, that cost money. The tops could easily be $800 to $1,000 if they did the wiring, as hopefully they should have. That's about $200 to $250 for the wiring that goes through here. And then obviously to install it could easily be $1,000 to $2,000, I think, depending on where you live. So we'll look down here to see if there's anything else. Again, kind of just that rear 3/4 shot. This one I think is going to appeal to someone that wants a quick, a car that they can get in and cruise. It's already kind of over the hill a little bit in terms of some resto modding. So if you're looking to potentially get into a car that maybe isn't fully factory, something you can potentially work on over the road or over the course of time. Maybe you've got a family or a friend that is metal fabricator. These things that they've shown could easily be repaired. Now, the couple things I'll say in terms of, so there was a lot of the pros I covered there, right? So some of the cons that I would say overall, so pros and cons list, if you will, relating to this listing, okay? There needs to be more photos, 100%. So, I'll try to maybe going forward kind of break these listing reviews down a little bit and say, okay, let's go over all the good. Let's go over some things that I would suggest either for you in the future if you're looking to sell a car, or for this seller, that they could have done better. So number one is we need more photos, right? They've done a good job, a solid job, but we need more photos. What's inside the deck lid, right? Underneath the deck lid, is it really rusted? They had photos on a lift, so great. Again, that's fantastic. I'd like to see more photos underneath the hood to see, is it rusted there? Okay. Videos, all right. this is where you could take your normal iPhone or Android device and walk around and do a video, show the windows going up and down. Okay. If one doesn't work, just show that. Say, hey, look, 3 of them work. Do the vent windows work? All right. So there's really 4 windows. There's the 4 windows, and then there's the 2 vent windows. So you have 6. Do they work? Do the auto drops work, right? So you got 6 windows. Now you got 2 additional items. Do the auto drops. So when you push in the to open the door, right, on the back, you guys have seen my videos possibly, the window should drop. And then when you close the door, that window should go back up. That's how that top of the window seals against the convertible top where those rubber seals go, right? So we don't know, do those work? How good does the top work? All right. So they've spent the money. Show us the photo inside the trunk here to show all of the new stuff that they've installed, right? Show us the lines, right? Show us the proof that, all of that stuff was done, because again, that's going to help the confidence of a potential buyer to say, wow, great. This looks like it's awesome. They've done all this. That's important because a lot of folks that buy a car like this might say, hey, it's my dream car. I've always wanted a car like this. But it's very intimidating to open that deck lid and go, wow, the top's not working. I don't know what to do. Or if the deck lid doesn't open, there's a couple tricks to get it open. But how confident are you to go out there and start grabbing screwdrivers and, jumper wires and things like that to work on a car? So for a seller, they need to do the best they can to reiterate, if the parts have been purchased and installed, show us all of that. Again, convertible, super important. Let's see inside the deck lid, underneath it, so to speak. Let's look in the trunk, right? Is the factory carpeting there? Am I going to have to buy that stuff? Does the trunk look decent? Does the trunk floor, is it rusted out? All of that stuff is key. So I would say those are a couple things that stick out to me. If there was a receipt for the engine rebuild, take a photo of it. If you want to blur out your address or personal information that's on there, by all means, you can use a basic iPhone app or Android app and do those kind of things, right? That's important. Show if it was $4, $5, $6 grand. If the interior, if there's a receipt for it, if there's a receipt for these CPP brakes, right? Now, you could say, hey, maybe they acquired it 2 years ago and they didn't do all this. Well, they have the photos of it. So my assumption is that they did it under their watch, right? They may have bought this car locally and they decided to kind of start the resto mod on it. So those are a few things that I wanted to kind of call out. Ask for more photos by all means, whether the person has Google Drive, Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, you name it. It's super simple these days to go and shoot photos to people, whether it's text, Facebook Messenger, or some of the other solutions that I've mentioned. I think that's it. In closing, again, with Haggerty, you can go out here and you'll see, boom, it's right within these two. You could argue it's between fair and good, but at the same time, it only takes a minute. Go in here, copy and paste all this, right? Then go into your notes on your phone. Boom. Now you got your bullet points. You can go in here and go, wow, how much does this cost? Call your local places and you figure out all this stuff. And if this comes to 15 or 20 grand, 25 grand maybe then you can justify either to yourself and or your significant other that, hey, 35 grand for an opening bid is a good bid, and you might end up with your dream car. We'll have to see. I'll come back after this auction ends and kind of see. It's got 8 days, so I'm curious myself to see if it's going to bump up. If someone's going to bid it at 35, I'm assuming they will, and maybe see. My guess is 35 to 50 on a car of this condition. But if there was more photos in there, I think it could potentially go higher. It would be great for the seller to go back and add more. We shall see. Not necessarily a horrible car. I would cruise this thing up and down the block. Take care, and make sure you check out Lincoln Addict Podcast, however you consume podcasts, or LincolnAddict.com. Take care. We out of here.